everyone. Right, how's that? Can you hear me okay? Okay. Well, we're here in a very dramatic moment. You wouldn't guess from the turnout, but I think in a way that's logical, because the way the media is presenting this is, in a sense, to de-dramatize, to trivialize what's going on. I mean, some of the propaganda that's coming out is quite bizarre. The Telegraph are warning. The Telegraph are warning about Russian honey traps. Well, that sounds like it could spice life up a bit, but they're also, I know the Telegraph this morning is also heading on a fiendish campaign of sabotage by the Russians. You know, apparently they've been sort of putting little bombs to go off somewhere. This is quite extraordinary. I mean, the Russians have just fired off an Oreshnik missile, which will change war forever. But there's no mention of that. People don't know what's going on, and they haven't heard some of the quotes that I'm about to come out with. For example, this Admiral Thomas Buchanan is from Strategic Command. What he's saying is almost unbelievable. He's saying that yes, we're ready for nuclear war with Russia, and but in order, you know, we're ready for nuclear war with Russia, and the important thing is that when we've beaten Russia, we have to make sure that we've got plenty of nukes left, because we still need to be able to impose American hegemony on the world. I mean, what an unbelievable statement. There's also this guy, Rob Bauer. He's the chair of the NATO Military Committee, and he was speaking at the Berlin Security Conference, and he said that he called positive the fact that NATO has changed its attitude to the essence of the organization as a defense alliance, as well as the perception that it is necessary to, quote, sit and wait for us to be attacked and only then react. He goes on, it is more competent not to wait, but to hit launchers in Russia in case Russia attacks us. A combination of precision strikes is needed that will disable the systems that they use to attack us. And we must strike first. So much for the idea of NATO as a defensive alliance is now being rescheduled as an offensive alliance. Then in Britain we have Lieutenant General Sir Robert McGowan. Oh, I think it was only a couple of nights ago he said that, the British Army is ready to take on Russia tonight. Now, we are ready to go. This was in front of a Commons sort of defense, kind of select committee, defense committee. In response to questions about whether Britain was in any condition to take on Russia at the moment, he said, well, it's not us alone. There are 32 members of NATO, and we all work together. It's one for all and all for one. So this is NATO as a whole, which he claims is in a position to take on Russia. In fact, none of those NATO states are in a position to take on Russia, and nor is NATO. They should have learned that from what has been happening in Ukraine since 2020, but apparently not. Also, we have this, a senior Biden administration official who spoke on conditions of anonymity said on Wednesday that the outgoing Democratic administration wants Ukraine to lower the mobilization age to 18 from the current age of 25, to help expand the pool of fighting-age men available to help a badly outmanned Ukraine in its nearly 3-year-old war with Russia. Well, why is Ukraine badly outmanned? It's because they've lost up to 1 million men. Huge numbers of Ukrainians are being sacrificed in this futile war, which they are losing. There is almost nothing left of the Ukrainian army, which is the most powerful army that NATO could hope to put in the field. It's gone. But this is really shocking that the Biden administration is trying to dictate to Ukraine that they conscript younger and younger people to go to an almost certain death. Then we have our own statement on Thursday, I think, from our very own Boris Johnson. He says, "The problem has not been escalation. The problem has been the failure to escalate fast enough." Okay, so, well, you could say that he's not the Prime Minister. Boris Johnson is not the Prime Minister. Well, he is a leading spokesman for the Uni Party. Doesn't matter whether he's the Prime Minister or not. I mean, the entire British political class is united behind this. I mean, for example, so in the face of these open calls for war, for conscription, to escalate the conflict, what response has there been in the House of Commons? In fact, almost nothing. Jeremy Corbyn fielded a dolly of a question to Starmer, who simply swept it aside. Nigel Farage has made one or two noises questioning the wisdom of escalating the conflict, but he was completely torn apart by Labour foreign policy spokesman Francois the other night on GB News, and he was also savaged by a couple of neocon commentators who ridiculed his idea of having a vote in the House of Commons. You know, they were saying, well, do you really think anyone in the House of Commons would vote against war with Ukraine, would vote against firing Storm Shadow missiles into Russia using British operatives, British teams? And of course they were right. The whole House of Commons would vote in favour of it, just as in the same way that they gave a standing ovation to Zelensky back in 2020. So there is no opposition within the British political class. And that must be almost a first. There was always someone in the past who would stand up against these kind of outrageous and irresponsible acts. I mean, just to remind you that the latest phase of this crisis, after Starmer went to Washington in September, his appeals to Biden to be able to fire these missiles into Russia were summarily rejected. But Biden then simply changed his mind. And it's hard to see what's going on there, but this was an extreme provocation in the face of clear warnings from the Russians that this would constitute an act of war. Of course, the other interesting thing is where's the response from Trump? Trump has won the election. He is the president-elect. and he won on the understanding that he was a peace candidate. Unfortunately, there seems to be nothing from him. I mean, if he was a serious peace candidate, he would have immediately said that he would rescind these measures that Biden had put in place as soon as he came into power. He would have said that publicly to reassure the Russians and possibly stave off a more dramatic response from them. But nothing has come from him. And the statements from his new appointees are far from encouraging.